Hi, I'm Kate Arndt. I am the Youth and Diary Historian here at the Holocaust Museum in Houston. Welcome to Youth Chats, a series in which I get to discuss with you about some Jewish teens and children. Some are diarists, some are not, and basically why I talk about them and why I think their memories are important. Throughout the series, you will get to hear about many Jewish teens and children of all ages, from 5 all the way up to almost 30. I know people will say that, oh, well, 30, that's not a child, that's an adult. Well, in this kind of realm here, we talk about Jewish teens and children of all ages. So it's really cool that I get to discuss them and I get to share with you guys about kids that you may not have heard of, or some kids that you may be familiar with, and just some kids that I just feel like need some spotlight. So I'm very excited to present to you the first one of these chats. It is a diarist, and this diarist had just recently had a birthday on February 1st. He would have been 95 years old had he survived, but every year on February 1st I remember, and I talk about him quite often. I discuss him on every tour that I do here at the museum, and I'm really excited to talk about him with you. Let me get him here. I have a little book here that I use as a prop for tours. We have Thomas Kalk on the front, which we will get to. We'll talk about him in another video because his story is really sad, but he's just adorable. He's cute. Okay, anyway, you'll see the better picture here. But we want to talk about today about Petr Ginz, or Petr Ginz. I call him Petr because that's just how his name looks. So Petr was born on February 1st, 1928 in Prague. He was the oldest. He was the oldest boy of 2 children and the only boy. He was born to a wonderful family in Prague, and he really from a young age showed a lot of creativity, a lot of interest in nature and the arts and sciences, and he wanted to be a scientist when he grew up, according to Hava, but I think he also wanted to be an artist as well because his artwork is fabulous. Petr, if you can see this picture here, I know it's kind of weird, I know it's sad because of the glare, but anyway, Petr had a younger sister named Eva, or Hava, who was also born in February. She was born on the 21st of February 1930, and he had really just an amazing personality. He was very fun, very mischievous, very loving, and he loved to write stories. He wrote novels and he illustrated them all himself. One of them is called Wizard of the All-Time Mountains, and some of his novels do still exist today. I don't think they've ever been fully published. I don't think they've ever been published, period, which I could try to figure out how to do that. Some of them are not, some of them do not exist anymore. I think they've been lost. Petr was from a family who the Nazis would call Mishlinka, which means he was a half-Jew. His mother was a non-Jew, his father was a Jew. So, according to his sister Hava, she said that the difference between their family and other Jewish children is that they would go to concentration camps when they reached the age of 14. So, in October of 1942, Petr was deported to Theresienstadt, or Terezin, and Petr really thrived there. I know that sounds terrible of me to say. I mean, it's a ghetto. How would you thrive in a ghetto? He and a group of boys created an underground magazine called Vedum, which means we lead. And there are copies of Vedum that still do exist today, and it's just incredible the way that, you know, the reading is. They did a lot of like satire, they did poetry, they did stories, and Petr did all the illustrations. And Petr also wrote a diary while in Terezin, but he also had a diary before Terezin, which he wrote in. He wrote facts, not feelings, according to Hava, because according to Hava, his feelings he remembered, and it was the facts that he was afraid to forget. So he would write down like where he was or what he did during the day. And Petr's sister Hava arrived to Theresienstadt in May of 1944 when she turned 14, and he really took care of her. He taught her English there. He taught her a lot of things. As she said, he took on the role of more of a teacher than a brother. And in September of 1944, unfortunately, Petr was deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau, where he was unfortunately gassed upon arrival. He was 16 years old. So that's when I explain that to kids, I think that's, or to students, I think that's hard for them to take in. Petr's sister Hava survived, as well as her parents, and Hava married Yoram Pressburger, and they moved to Israel, where they lived for the next 50-something years. I mean, they had their children there, they raised their children there. Petr's diaries came into view to her, I believe, in the early 2000s. A man, I believe, found them, and his earlier diaries, and said that he had them, and she was able to get them back, and she was able to publish them, and that is the book that I usually present to students. I have a couple editions of this diary. Petr Ginz means quite a lot to me. So I discovered Petr in 2010, after I discovered the book thanks to my friend and Holocaust survivor Peter Feigl, who recommended me the book Salvage Pages by the amazing Alexandra Zapruder, who I am very lucky to know and call her a colleague. I've known her for a long time. But this edition is a beautiful edition. It's got his words in the back, and it's got a beautiful picture of him. Luckily for Hava's family, they kept all the pictures of him, which is amazing. And the thing that I love about this diary is that it has not only his words in here, but it also has like family photos, which you can see the picture that I have here and pictures here, and it also has his artwork. Petr was an amazing artist. He loved to paint and draw, and this is like one of the art things that he did, are like paintings and drawings that he did. Petr, and on the back you can see the ghetto that he drew, that he painted. Petr, I feel like, really spoke to me, and I don't know why. And when I was able to speak to his sister and get to know her, and when I started talking to her in 2011, that was a really big deal for me. We talked about him, we talked about her, we discussed a lot. And Petr is, I know it's kind of strange for me to say, but he's definitely one of my personal favorites. And I'm not sure exactly what drew me to him, but when I started reading his diary and researching him back in 2010, it's like something just clicked. And he was not going to let me go, and I was not going to let him go either. We do have a picture of him and Hava in our exhibit here. I do share this book with students and educators. I share it especially with young people whose parents are kind of like, you know, are there any diaries that are not so graphic, if you will? And I always recommend Petr's, because Petr's is very tame, as I could tell you that much. It's very, in the morning I was in town, in the afternoon at home. They say the transport trains have stopped at least until January 10th. Like, it's not, you know, it's not like, you know, there's no school because it's a coup on Monday and Tuesday. I received notice to go to school and fill sacks with sawdust. In the morning, I filled 60 sacks with a group that also included Pavel G, which was his cousin who died with him at Auschwitz. In the afternoon, we stuffed over 80 sacks. They reached the ceiling. The two cars delivered the sawdust. The full sacks were sent to Valtrizny Palace, where Jews are supposed to stay for 5 days prior to the journey to Poland. I guess they'll sleep on the sacks. So he does talk about other things as well, but I think one of the things that really kind of made me cry a little bit when I first read this was Hava's introduction. And it says, our parents raised Petr and me to have good manners, discipline, and education. They taught us to distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad. The Holocaust convinced us that there are evil people in this world, often led by fanaticism, who are capable of murder and merciless torture. But there are also others, those who try to help under any circumstances, and for whom love is all important. Such people avoid hate even against evil even against the evil they disagree with. Petr's young spirit was fully directed toward the good. The essence of his interests and desires had its source in enrichments of his soul. He belonged to the important category of people who endowed the gift of positive thinking, which I really loved. And one of the things that she wrote really really kind of made me cry a little bit. I'm trying to find it. Okay, he says, remembering Crow. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's see. He talks about that. God, she writes about how when she got this, she felt that Petr hadn't really died. And okay, here we go. When I first saw him, I felt as if Petr hadn't actually died. It seemed to me that he was alive somewhere in eternity and was letting me know by sending this particular message. You know, she told me something like this. She said to me we would talk either through email or Skype. And one time she told me, I remember this very well, she said she had this dream and she saw Petr standing before her and holding out a book like this. And his words to her were, "I'm in your hands now. You do what you want." And she told me that Petr and I are in your hands now. You do what you want with us. And when Hava passed away in September of 2022, which I thought was ironic because Petr also died in September, I felt very, very, it broke my heart. It broke me. But I felt very close to them both. And I felt like I needed to talk about Petr a lot more and Hava a lot more. With Petr, I feel like this boy is always guiding me and always saving me in a lot of ways. He's just unbelievably inspiring. I think with Hava, the way that she talked about her brother, even years later after his death, it was always loving and very wonderful for me because it's like I get to know him better. So yeah, on the tour, I get to talk about Petr. He's actually the second person we discuss because I like to discuss siblings and talk about Hava and her decision to give us Petr's story. And I was always so grateful for her for that. And I was just so honored that I got to know them, and I know know Hava's family pretty well. Petr will always be very much a part of my life. When I talk about him, I could always feel him in this room. He's such a vibrant spirit, such a wonderful person, and unfortunately his life ended at age 16, so he did not get the chance to see the end of the 40s or now. But like I said, he would have been 95 years old had he survived. And Petr is just a wonderful person to research and just a wonderful person to read his diary. Excuse me. And he was just really overall great, and he's one of my personal favorites. I'm not always entirely sure why, but every time I try to go with other diarists, he keeps coming back. So it's nice to be able to talk about him. And anyway, so I hope you guys come to the museum and learn about Petr Ginz from me. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the museum, or you can also reach out to me as well through the museum. They will send your message to me. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and we'll see you